In the heart of the Pacific Northwest, shrouded in the perpetual mist that clings to its ancient forests, lies the town of Eldridge Falls. To an outsider, it might appear quaint, even picturesque, with its cobblestone streets and Victorian architecture frozen in time. But beneath this veneer of small-town charm, there lies a whispering undercurrent of unease, of secrets long buried but never forgotten. I'm Hunter, a name you might know if you're into the darker, more obscure corners of the internet. I run a blog that delves into the unexplained and the paranormal. Ghost stories, urban legends, unsolved mysteries. These are the realms I inhabit. But of all the stories I've chased, none have captivated me quite like the legend of the subterranean tunnels of Eldridge Falls. The locals speak of it in hushed tones, if they speak of it at all. A network of tunnels, sprawling like the roots of an ancient tree beneath the town. Some say they were used during Prohibition. Others whisper of older, more sinister origins. Stories abound of those who ventured into these tunnels and never returned, or worse, returned. Change. You see, I've always been drawn to the unknown, the spaces between the facts where the imagination runs wild. There's something intoxicating about standing on the precipice of discovery, of peering into the abyss and wondering what gazes back. That's what led me to Eldridge Falls. I needed to see for myself, to uncover the truth hidden in those shadowy depths. So here I am standing at the edge of this sleepy town, poised to unravel its darkest secret. I feel it in my bones. This will be my biggest story yet. Little do I know, as the chill of the mist seeps into my skin, that I am about to step into a nightmare from which there is no waking, a journey into darkness that will test the very limits of my sanity. And it all begins with an unexpected encounter, a warning from a voice of the past urging me to turn back. But how can I? I'm Hunter, and uncovering the hidden, facing the unknown, that's what I do. Little did I understand, as I took those first steps towards the tunnels, that some mysteries are better left unsolved, some secrets better left buried. This is my story, the tale of the subterranean tunnels of Eldridge Falls. And trust me, it's not for the faint of heart. It was a gloomy afternoon in Eldridge Falls when my path crossed with his. He is a figure from the town's past, as enigmatic as the legends themselves. I was sipping coffee in a quaint little cafe downtown, flipping through old newspaper clippings about the town when he approached. His gait was unsteady, his eyes clouded with age, but there was a sharpness to them that spoke of unspoken knowledge. "You're Hunter, the blogger, aren't you?" he rasped, his voice a gravelly echo of younger days. I nodded, curiosity piqued. He introduced himself as Walter, a former worker of the very tunnels that haunted my thoughts. His hands, gnarled with time, trembled as he spoke of his days working in those subterranean depths. "The tunnels, they ain't what you think," he warned, his voice dropping to a whisper. "They're older than the town, older than any of us can fathom. I've seen things down there, things that ain't meant for the eyes of the living." His words were fragmented, like shards of a broken mirror reflecting a terrifying image. He spoke of shadows that moved of their own volition, of whispers that seemed to come from the very walls, and of a presence, an oppressive, malevolent force that lingered in the darkest corners. I listened, a chill running down my spine, not just from his words, but from the earnest fear in his eyes. This was no mere senile rambling. Walter believed every word he uttered. "You go down there, you ain't coming back the same. If you come back at all," he cautioned, his gaze piercing through me. With that ominous warning, he shuffled away, leaving me with a storm of thoughts. These words should have deterred me, should have quenched the flame of my curiosity. But they did the opposite. I was more intrigued than ever. I spent the rest of the day in the local library, poring over historical records, old maps, and any scrap of information I could find about the tunnels. The more I uncovered, the deeper the mystery became. Disappearances dating back centuries, unexplained phenomena, accounts of strange noises emanating from the ground. The town's history was steeped in shadows, and at the heart of it all were the tunnels, a labyrinthine enigma calling out to me. As night fell over Eldridge Falls, I made my decision. I would venture into the depths, into the mouth of the unknown. Walter's warnings echoed in my mind, but the lure of the mystery was irresistible. I had to see for myself, had to uncover the truth hidden beneath the streets of this whispering town. And so, with a sense of foreboding settling in my heart, I prepared for my descent into darkness, unaware of the true horror that awaited me in the echoing silence of the tunnels. The night was moonless, the sky a tapestry of stars as I stood before the abandoned factory on the outskirts of Eldridge Falls. This decrepit relic of the industrial age was rumored to conceal one of the primary entrances to the tunnels. As I breached the perimeter, the air grew colder, the silence of the night punctuated by the distant howl of a lone wolf. Armed with my camera, a flashlight, and a backpack filled with essentials, I navigated the ruins of the factory. The place was a labyrinth of rusted machinery and collapsed ceilings, a tomb of a bygone era. After what felt like hours, I found it, a gaping maw in the factory floor, a stairway leading into the abyss. With a deep breath, I descended. The air grew thick, heavy with the must of decay and damp earth. My flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a network of tunnels that stretched into the shadows. The walls were lined with crumbling bricks, etched with the scars of time. The silence was oppressive, a tangible entity that seemed to swallow my footsteps. As I ventured deeper, the atmosphere changed. The air felt charged, electric. My skin prickled with the sensation of unseen eyes watching me from the darkness. Echoes played tricks on my mind, footsteps and whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. I found myself in a larger chamber, the beams of my flashlight revealing unsettling sights. Tools lay scattered, rusted and forgotten, remnants of the tunnel's past life. The walls bore cryptic symbols, their meanings lost to time, and murals that depicted scenes of a disturbing nature. Figures shrouded in darkness, their faces twisted in agony. The deeper I went, the stronger the feeling of being watched became. I heard it then, a soft skittering in the darkness, just beyond the reach of my light. I spun around, heart racing, but saw nothing. The sound retreated into the shadows, leaving me with a growing sense of dread. I pushed on, driven by a morbid fascination, a need to uncover the secrets of this place. But with each step, I could feel a darkness seeping into my bones, a cold, creeping fear that whispered of things best left undiscovered. In the depths of the tunnels, I realized I was no longer just an observer. I was a part of the story, a character in a tale of horror and madness. And as the shadows closed in around me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap, one that had been waiting for me all along. The deeper I delved into the labyrinth of the subterranean tunnels, the more I felt like an intruder in a forgotten world. Each step took me further into the bowels of the earth, into a history shrouded in darkness. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and something else, something ancient. It was in a secluded chamber that I found them, relics of a bygone era. Silent witnesses to the passage of time. There were tools rusted and warped, scattered around like discarded toys of a giant. I wondered about the hands that once held them, about the stories they could tell. The walls of the chamber were canvases of history, adorned with cryptic symbols and murals. The symbols were indecipherable, but they emanated a sense of purpose, a message meant for those who understood. The murals, however, were vivid in their grotesqueness. Scenes of ritualistic ceremonies, figures draped in robes, their faces hidden, participating in acts that sent shivers down my spine. As I documented these findings with my camera, a feeling of unease began to settle over me. It was a sensation of being watched, but it was more than that. It was as if the very walls were whispering secrets, secrets meant to stay buried. The whispers grew louder, morphing into discernible sounds. Footsteps echoed in the distance, too rhythmic to be a product of my imagination. The rustling of movement just out of sight set my heart racing. I spun around, flashlight in hand, but was met with nothing but the oppressive darkness. I tried to convince myself it was just the tricks of an overactive imagination, the echo of my own movements. But the feeling of being followed persisted, growing stronger with each passing moment. I could almost sense a presence, something lurking in the shadows, just beyond the reach of my light. It was then that I heard it, a low, guttural growl, reverberating through the walls. The sound was primal, filled with an anger that felt as old as the earth itself. I froze, my blood turning cold. Something was down here with me, something alive and malevolent. The air grew colder, the darkness seemed to press in on me from all sides. I realized then that I was no longer the hunter, but the hunted. Paranoia crept into my mind, whispering that I should turn back, that I had delved too deep into a world that was not meant for living. But the mystery of the tunnels beckoned me still, an irresistible siren call. I pressed on, driven by a need to uncover the secrets that lay hidden in the heart of Eldridge Falls. Little did I know, as I ventured deeper into the abyss, that the truth I sought would be more terrifying than any legend. Deeper into the heart of the earth I ventured, each step a descent into a past long forgotten. The air grew heavier, charged with an energy that felt both ancient and alive. It was in a cavernous chamber that I found it, the Well of Secrets. This well, a gaping hole in the earth, was encircled by stones covered in more of those cryptic symbols. Its presence was ominous, commanding the chamber with an air of silent authority. As I approached, my camera began to malfunction, the screen flickering with static, as if the well itself was disrupting the technology. Compelled by an inexplicable urge, I leaned over the well, peering into the darkness. That's when I heard it. A voice, disembodied and echoing as if coming from the depths of the earth. It was ancient, filled with a sorrow and rage that transcended time. The voice spoke of secrets buried in the earth, of a town built on a foundation of horrors. It whispered of an ancient entity, one that had slumbered in the darkness for centuries, held at bay by the symbols and rituals lost to time. But now, it warned, the entity stirred, its awakening imminent. I listened, my heart pounding in my chest, as the voice painted a picture of a darkness that was about to be unleashed upon the world. It spoke of a cycle, a ritual that needed to be completed, one that the town unwittingly participated in every generation. As the voice faded into a haunting silence, a chill ran down my spine. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I was not just a bystander in this story. I was a part of it, a pawn in a game that had been played for centuries. The atmosphere in the chamber shifted, the air growing colder as if the well itself had exhaled a breath of the abyss. I felt a presence, an oppressive force that seemed to emanate from the well, enveloping the chamber in a blanket of dread. I knew then that I had to leave, that I had delved too deep into a mystery that was not meant to be unraveled. But as I turned to make my escape, a sound froze me in my tracks. The sound of something stirring in the darkness, a nightmare awakening in the bowels of the earth. In that moment, I realized the terrifying truth. The entity was not just a story, it was real, and I had awoken it. With the chilling words of the voice from the well still echoing in my mind, I turned to leave the chamber. That's when I felt it, an ominous sensation that something was stirring in the darkness behind me. At first, it was just a faint rustling like the whisper of fabric against stone. But soon, it grew into a discernible sound of pursuit, a presence that was decidedly not human. My heart pounded in my chest as I quickened my pace. The narrow beam of my flashlight, my only guide in the suffocating darkness. The tunnels, once silent, now seemed to resonate with the sound of my unseen pursuer. I could hear it, a subtle, yet unmistakable sound of something crawling, slithering through the shadows. The chase was a feverish blur, a desperate race through the serpentine maze of the tunnels. My mind raced with terror, each turn and twist a gamble against an unseen predator. The sounds grew closer, a symphony of nightmares that seemed to feed on my fear. In my panicked flight, I stumbled over uneven ground, my flashlight tumbling from my grasp. Plunged into darkness, my sense of dread intensified. I scrambled to retrieve the light, the sounds of pursuit ominously close. With a trembling hand, I shone the light behind me. But there was nothing, only the oppressive darkness that seemed to laugh at my plight. I realized then that I was not just fleeing. I was being herded, driven deeper into the labyrinth by an intelligence that knew these tunnels far better than I ever could. The realization hit me like a physical blow, fueling my desperation to escape. With a burst of adrenaline, I surged forward, my legs pushing past their limit. The tunnel began to slope upwards, a sign that I was nearing the surface. I could see a faint light ahead, the end of this nightmare within reach. As I neared the exit, the presence behind me intensified. In a final act of defiance, I turned and screamed into the darkness, challenging my unseen tormentor. For a brief moment, there was silence, and then a guttural growl that shook the very ground beneath me. With one last effort, I lunged towards the light, emerging from the tunnel's mouth. Just as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, I collapsed, gasping for air, the terror of the chase still gripping my heart. As I lay there, looking back at the dark entrance to the tunnels, I knew that I had narrowly escaped something unspeakable. The entity from the depths had made its presence known, and I had been its unwilling prey. Gasping on the cold, dew-dampened grass, the first rays of dawn brought little comfort. The shadows of the night receded, but the darkness within me remained. I had emerged from the tunnels, but something essential had been left behind in those oppressive depths. My hands trembled, not just from exhaustion, but from the realization of the horror I had narrowly escaped. The once familiar streets of Eldridge Falls now seemed alien, as if I was seeing them through a veil of newfound understanding. The quaint town hid a malignant secret, and I had unwittingly pried open its lid. The experience in the tunnels was more than an exploration. It was a descent into a nightmare that defied explanation. In the days that followed, I did what I knew best. I wrote. I poured every detail of my harrowing experience into a blog post, sparing no detail, no matter how terrifying or unbelievable. The post went viral, spreading across the internet like wildfire. Comments poured in, a mix of skepticism, fear, and fascination. I became a sensation overnight, the blogger who had touched the darkness and returned. But the fame was hollow. The keyboard under my fingers felt cold, and the screen too bright. Sleep eluded me, and when it came, it was filled with nightmares of crawling shadows and echoing whispers. The town changed after my story spread. People whispered in the streets, casting furtive glances at the ground, as if afraid of what lay beneath. Eldridge Falls had lost its innocence, its facade of normalcy shattered by the truth I had unveiled. But it was more than just the atmosphere of the town that had changed. There were subtle, inexplicable occurrences, pets vanishing, strange markings appearing on buildings, and a general sense of unease that hung in the air like a foul mist. As I walked the streets, a chilling thought crept into my mind. Had I truly escaped the tunnels unscathed? Or had something followed me back, a whisper of the darkness that now lingered in the corners of my vision? The story of the subterranean tunnels of Eldridge Falls ends here, but its legacy continues. A reminder that some mysteries are better left buried and some doors, once opened, can unleash horrors beyond comprehension. I had sought the truth, but in finding it, I had opened a Pandora's box of nightmares, unsealing a horror that now whispered in the shadows of Eldridge Falls.